Welcome everyone. Today I am going to walk you through how to do the crumbled paper exercise. So this exercise is intended for you to start seeing different values when you look at an object, and then also to practice with the materials that you will use for your next project, which are a black charcoal pencil, white charcoal pencil, and a kneaded eraser. So really quickly, let's just go over how you use and take care of these. So the kneaded eraser is a lot of fun. Students tend to enjoy it because it stretches like sticky tack and it's kind of fun to play with. This is a material that should not be abused in the classroom. So if you I don't really mind you like holding it in your hands and going like that, but if you pull it to the point where it is loose and stringy like this, you have pulled it too far and you should not do that. The reason being that it will break, pieces will drop all over the floor. There's no reason to do it, and it kind of just, it makes a mess in my classroom, it wastes our supplies, and there's no reason to pull it that far. So when you're using it, oops, sorry, I just messed that up. When you're using it, keep it at about this as you're folding. I also, these erasers are used a little bit differently than a normal eraser. So with a normal eraser, you rub your paper like that. With this one, you do not. You actually, so let's say that I've got extra charcoal right here, more charcoal than I wanted, and I want to lift some of it off the paper. What I'm going to do to lift it without smearing it or ripping the paper is stretch my eraser to activate it, and then with a part that you see how it gets sort of white when it's activated, then I am going to press down and kind of dab and lift up. Once there's an area on my eraser that has turned black or white depending on what you're picking up, and it's dirty, it will no longer be of use. So I need to stretch and refold to get a new clean area. And then I can pick up as much charcoal as I need. Okay, so that's how you use a kneaded eraser. Please use it appropriately or I will take it away from you and you will not have any eraser to use for your project. These pencils can be used basically like normal pencils. It's the same thing except they are much darker, or they're much stronger, I guess. The white's not dark. And they're a little bit more difficult to sharpen. So give me just a second to get this set up and then I will demonstrate how to sharpen one of these pencils. So to sharpen these pencils, these are the pencil sharpeners that we have in class. If you just press it in here and twist it like a regular pencil, the odds of the charcoal getting stuck and falling out of your pencil, and getting stuck in here are very high. So instead of the normal way, here is what you want to do. So you're going to place the end of your pencil in the sharpener, but not all the way. So I'm not pushing it all the way in, I'm holding it about out here. Then you want to be looking at the side with the razor so that you can see what you're cutting away. And actually I'm going to use the white pencil because I need to cut away a little bit. And you want to tilt the pencil just a little bit so that the wood is flush with the razor. And then as you cut away at the wood, just keep watching it to make sure that you're not breaking it and that you're cutting the parts that you need to. In the classroom, please do this process over a trash can so that we don't make a mess in the room or on your desk. Okay, and that's how you sharpen the pencils. So just use extra caution sharpening them. If you keep breaking the charcoal, then you'll just whittle your pencil down to nothing and I don't have enough to replace them. So you will no longer be able to use that color. Okay, so that's how you sharpen. Now back to the folded paper exercise. And once you've figured out how to use your pencils, you've got them sharpened, and how to use your eraser, you will need a small square of paper, which I have at the front of the room, and a toned piece of paper for your sketchbook. This gray paper is called toned because it's not white. The scrap paper you have may have some writing on the back. If it has writing on the back, you want to choose the blank side so that the writing is not distracting when you're trying to look at value. Then we are going to crumple up this paper. The more that you crumple it, the more complicated it will be to draw. So if you, let me show you with another example. If you crumble it into a tight ball, like many people like to do, and then open it back up, you have so much detail to draw that it's almost overwhelming and it's hard to know where to begin. So instead of doing that, take your paper and just lightly press it in your hands, open it up a little bit, and look for the main lines. Okay, then go through and crease those lines. Just the main ones so that you can see them better. Now your paper should not be flat like this. It needs to have quite a bit of dimension. So if it doesn't have dimension, go ahead and add some more folds to make it a little bit more dimensional. And just kind of play with it until you're happy with how it looks. Okay, so you can see this paper is not flat. It has quite a bit of dimension. And when I set it to the side, I can see different highlights and shadows, which is the main purpose of this. You can turn it any way you want until you find some interesting value. I'm going to leave it like that. Once you have set it in a position, do not move it. So leave it at the same angle. Don't reshape it, turn it, anything once you start drawing, because you need to keep the exact same values on it, and if you move it, the light will shine on it in different ways. Then we are going to sketch out not only the outline of this paper, but also the main creases that run through the center. You can sketch it with a white pencil, the black pencil, or just a regular graphite pencil. Whichever you choose, please sketch lightly. So you can see in this previous example started, that I sketched it out with black, but I did so as lightly as possible so that I didn't have a big noticeable black outline. And the way that I would recommend doing that is, instead of holding your pencil here, scoot back to the end of the pencil like that. It's very difficult to press hard on the paper when you're using the pencil like that. That really goes for any pencil. For this example, I will sketch with the white charcoal. So I'm just going to do the outline and the main creases. Alright, I've got the main lines outlined, and I almost started to outline the shadows around here, the really significant shadows, but then I decided against that because I wanted to just focus on the main lines. So the next thing I'm going to do is look for the brightest highlights and the darkest shadows. I'll color the brightest highlights with the white and the darkest shadows with the black. And since I'm holding this one, I'll go ahead and start with the highlights. So from my angle, I'm not sure that it'll be the same from up above, but from my angle, the brightest highlights are here in this section, this face here, and then just a little bit over here. So I am going to color those with a very light layer of white. I'm gonna hold it back here. I'm not gonna press very hard. I'm just gonna make a really light layer. And I'm gonna do the shadows with a very light layer of the black. This one, it's really important to make your layers light because obviously the charcoal is very dark. Okay, now that I have a light layer of white and a light layer of black, which doesn't look super light, but for charcoal that is pretty light, I am going to start looking for a little bit of variation within those areas. So even though this part is a dark shadow, the whole thing is not the exact same value, so I want to add a little bit of variation in it. I will go ahead and I'm gonna start with this section up here because from my angle, this part is really bright white and around it is a little bit, it's almost white, but it's a little bit more of a mid-tone, so it's a little bit gray. So I will fill the rest of it with a layer of white. Then I'm gonna do a really light layer of black in the areas that I think need to be a little bit darker, and then I'll put white over it again. And basically the process for creating midtones or blending values together is to go back and forth between black and white many, many times. So you want a ton of light layers to build up to your final layer. I will also show you how to fade from light to dark or dark to light. So let me get those base layers down and then I'll show you how to fade. Okay, as I add the thin layer of black, I am gonna start on the side where it's darkest, which would be here on this edge. And then as I work my way down, I'm gonna press lighter and lighter so that it fades out to the white. And then with the white, I will add another layer and I'll start with the areas that are brightest and then fade out as I get to the darker area. So here's the black going on this edge. I'm drawing very, very lightly, holding my pencil really far back and taking my time. Just so that you can see it a little bit better, I've added a light layer of black and now I'm going over it again with the white. I'm going to focus more attention on the area that's brighter and fade out a little bit in the area that will be more shadowed. got my second layer of white, and I'm going to go over it with black again. Okay, since I would consider this a highlight, I'm going to end with a white layer instead of a black layer. And I might even go over this again with white once I've sharpened my pencil, because it's kind of getting worn down. But anytime you have an area that you would consider a highlight overall, you want to end with the white. Same is true for the black, or the opposite is true for the black. Anytime you have an area that you think is a shadow, you want to go back and forth, but then end with the black. And if it is truly of the darkest part of the shadow, you don't need to add any white to it, just like I didn't add any black to this really, really bright part. So let me sharpen this pencil, and then I'll be right back. I've decided to zoom in a little bit more so you can see what I'm doing more closely. Scoot that over. So I'll add another layer of white to this, and then I'm going to focus on some of the shadows. I think I'll focus on this one because it has a dark area and then it kind of fades to light. All right, moving on to this one. From the angle that I'm seeing it, there is a pretty dark shadow right here and a little bit there and there, but from this corner in, it fades from light, or from dark to light. So light in the corner, dark towards the center. So I'm gonna, now that I have a layer of black, I will add some white and then kind of go back and forth. Then another layer of black. Quick note here, when you are trying to do a gradient, which is where you fade from light to dark or vice versa, it's better, instead of drawing in this direction toward in actually the direction that you want to go, it's better to draw the opposite direction and then work your way towards that value as you fade out. That just makes it a little bit neater. You don't get as much streakiness. I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning of the video or not, but we are exaggerating the values a bit in this just so that you can practice more with the black and white. Since this is a white piece of paper, the values aren't that dark, but we're exaggerating them. And since this is a shadow, I want to end with a layer of black. Really, really light layer. As I'm working, you may notice me turning the paper. If you ever can't reach a spot very well, you want to make sure that you're turning it. And that also applies to sharp edges. So some areas we want to fade to the next color, but there are, especially along those creases, there are some sharp edges that we really want to stand out. So I'm gonna flip this around and show you how to create that. So we're kind of looking at this upside down now, but there is a shadow on this side of the crease and then a very bright highlight on the top of the crease. So what I want to do is use my pencil, and I'm not just coloring any random way. I want to actually point my pencil towards that, I guess I should start with it like this, towards the crease. So I want to actually be able to see the line that I'm drawing and draw it really strong. I'm pressing pretty hard for this one because I want it to stand out. Then that highlight does fade a little bit onto this side. So I'm going to just smudge that with the pencil, make it blend in a little bit. Okay, so now we have both a very strong highlight right here and it kind of fades down into the shadows. And I think I overdid it a little here, so I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of black. Now I want to add the shadow on this side. And again, I want my pencil facing toward where the edge of that sharp line is gonna be, which would need to be this way, but I'm not left-handed, so I will flip it. I am just going to shade the rest of this as best as I can, and I'll stop if I have any comments to make, but I'm just going to try and get through this quickly, and I'll speed it up for you. I did think of one thing that might be helpful. For a lot of you, when you're drawing, you end up with a lot of charcoal or pencil on this part of your hand because you're kind of dragging over the rest of it as you're drawing. And then of course you're messing up all the work that you already did. So one thing you can do is take an extra sheet of sketchbook paper, just a plain white paper, and keep that in your sketchbook with you, and then pull it out anytime you need to, lay it down and put your wrist on top of it. That way you're not messing up any of the drawing and you don't have to stress about it. so that is nowhere near complete, but this is taking forever. So I think you get the idea here. So we are looking at the value, the local value of this paper. So trying to figure out where the brightest highlights are, the darkest shadows, and then exaggerating that value a little bit just because the white paper is pretty light, but I do want you to practice darker shadows. If you look a little bit more closely, you can see some details here, but honestly, if those little details like this stress you out, just simplify them. Pick a couple of main ones and then just kind of simplify the rest. I don't want you to stress over the details here. The important part is learning how to use the charcoal pencils, how to begin with your base layers, how to mix them together, and get some good blending and some good edges. So those are the main things. I really didn't use my eraser a lot, but just when I thought that I had a little bit too much charcoal on the paper. And a lot of people are tempted to blend with their fingers. I don't recommend this because for a couple reasons. One, it gets oil on the paper, which makes it more difficult to lift the charcoal off the paper if you have too much. It makes smudges that are really difficult to get off. Also, your fingers are generally a little bit too large to be blending in small areas. If you really need to blend something, you can roll up a paper towel and use the corner of that, or just put your finger on a paper towel and blend like that. But I think the best way to get good, even value is just by going back and forth with the black and the white and mixing them together. So that took a while, but hopefully that helps you to understand it a little bit better. And once you're done with this assignment, I do want you to show it to me so that I know whether or not you're ready to move on to your project. The next video will be about your planning guide and starting your project. Okay, let me know if you guys have any questions and tune into the next video. Bye.